Sean Murphy continues to absolutely blister baseballs for the Atlanta Braves, and he is currently on pace to have the best season ever by a Braves catcher. We'll talk about that in our Stat of the Day Wednesday on this episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I am your host, Jacob Mastriani. You can follow me on Twitter at shorts.ball. You can also check out my written work over at bravestoday.com. Make sure you follow the podcast on Twitter at LockedOn_Braves. Send in any questions, comments, or feedback that you have for the podcast. Always enjoy hearing from you, the listener. If you're new on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. You're watching there, hit that thumbs up button as well to help support the show, and leave me a comment as well. I try to respond to just about every comment that I get on these YouTube videos, and always appreciate those comments. Appreciate when you let me know that you're an everydayer as well. Had several more on yesterday's YouTube video. Appreciate you as always for letting me know that you are an everyday listener, and thanks as always for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. A championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. The same is true with your vehicle. So for parts that fit, head to eBay Motors and look for the green check. Stay in the game with eBay's Guaranteed Fit. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. On today's episode, we're going to recap Tuesday's win over the Boston Red Sox, go over some of the highlights there, discuss the Max Fried news and some of the fallout from that. And then we're going to focus on Sean Murphy, who is currently on pace to have the best season ever by a Braves catcher. We'll do that in our Stat of the Wednesday segment on today's episode. But let's start out with the bad news. Let's get the bad news out of the way first. I'm somebody who likes the bad news first, and then give me a good news to end on. So let's start talking about Max Fried. And doesn't sound great when you're talking about issues with the forearm. At least they're talking about him coming back this year, and they're talking about him coming back. So that is somewhat good news in all of this. But the second time this year that he's gone on the IL already, two very different issues that are not related in any way, but very concerning that you're losing your ace for the second time already in this season, and what I think is going to be at a bare minimum a month. They're already talking about when he does come back that he's going to have to build up his strength, going to have some rehab assignments. So when that's the case, especially for a starting pitcher, I think you're looking at least a month, maybe two, before we see Max Fried again. So it's a big deal. It's a big loss for this Braves team, being without Max Fried, being without Kyle Wright for an extended period of time now. Because as I said with Kyle Wright, I think he's out for at least a month or two, if not longer, with his second shoulder issue of the year already. You know, that is the same reoccurring issue. So that is a little bit more concerning for me with Kyle Wright. Braves have built themselves this nice cushion, got off to a great start, and they've needed it, taking advantage of some, struggling opponents, which you need to do and good teams should do, but it's helped them kind of build this nice cushion. And I think they're going to need it because it's going to be somewhat of a struggle without Max Fried and Kyle Wright in there. But you don't want to let up, obviously, and they continue to play good baseball. Took 2 of 3 against the Orioles, lost a start that was by Max Fried, and took the first game of this Red Sox series. But this rest of this month is going to be very, very difficult. And I said, even coming into this stretch, if the Braves just, go 11-9, something like that, just little bit over 500 for the rest of this month, I would have considered that a win. Now you're talking about they're going to be without Max Fried and Kyle Wright. I mean, it's really, if you get through the rest of this month playing 500 the rest of the way, I still think that should be considered a win for this Braves team. Now, obviously, they want to do more. I want to see them do more, and I think they can. I think they have the offense to help them push through some of these pitching injuries, but going to tax the bullpen even more now because you're going to be counting on these young starters, and you don't know how much length they can give you. Is Bryce Elder going to continue to pitch like an ace? You got to think there's possibly going to be some regression there at some point. I don't think he's going to pitch to a sub-2 ERA all year. So bullpen's going to be tested once again, as they were early in the year when you were dealing with a lot of these starting rotation injuries. But they do have some solid depth, that should be able to get them through until Fried and Wright return, or at least till the June, July timeframe when maybe you see some trades more likely. I know a lot of you have already hit me up talking about possible trade situations that the Braves should go trade this player for a pitcher and all that. Hard to make those deals happen in May. You're just not going to see a lot of trades of significance happen this early in the season. Maybe next month, maybe June. Definitely once we get into July, you'll see some of those trades happen. So if the Braves can survive with their depth until then perhaps you do go out and maybe trade for another veteran or middle of the rotation starter type if the Braves can, and if those pitchers become available. But for now, you're just going to have to ride it out with the depth that they have. They're going to need guys, Dodd, Schuster, Soroka. Those guys are going to have to step up, and they're going to have to play much bigger roles than the Braves anticipated. So, at least two of those guys are going to be in this rotation going forward until Wright and Fried can return. And, I said this at the beginning of the year. The two guys you have to have on this Braves team to win a World Series is Max Fried and Spencer Strider. As great as Ronald Acuna Jr. is, MVP candidate, one of my favorite players to watch right now, Braves could lose him, and I think they still have enough in the lineup to get the job done. But I don't know if you can win a World Series without Max Fried and Spencer Strider. Definitely have to have at least one of them. And the Braves do right now in Spencer Strider. But you got to have those two aces at the top of your rotation to give yourself the best chance to win a World Series. So hopefully Max Fried's getting this out of the way now. And hopefully he'll be healthy at the right time. Last year, Fried and Strider weren't healthy at the right time. We saw what happened. But those are my two players that the Braves just cannot be without once postseason time comes around. Offense has to step up in a big way with these guys out, and they sure did on Tuesday night in a 9-3 win, a 4-run first inning, really giving the starter Charlie Morton a lot of confidence. Olsen had a big 2-run homer to the top of the chop out there, absolutely crushed. Also walked 3 times in this game. He's hit 3 home runs in his last 5 games and walked 6 times in that stretch, raising his on-base percentage to 382. So you wonder why he's there in that 2 hole, because he's going to continue to hit 2-run homers with Acuna getting on base in front of him, and he's going to continue to get on base for Sean Murphy and hopefully at some point Austin Riley behind him. 3-hit, 4 RBI day for Sean Murphy. We're going to talk more about him here in a second. And then Orlando Arcia. I mean, we talked about the future of the shortstop position on Tuesday's podcast. You want to go back and give that a listen, but many of you said it's going to be Arcia for the next 2 or 3 years, as long as he continues to play defensively like he has so far this season. And that's kind of where I am too. If he can just be, average to above average defensively, whatever he gives you at the bottom of the order, I think is icing on the cake. But he gave you 3 hits and a double on Tuesday night, just his second game back from a microfracture in his wrist, and just some wizardry on defense. I mean, the guy is unbelievable. Again, you look at some of the metrics on him, and again, I don't want to go in on defensive metrics. I still believe in my eyes more than I do a lot of the times on defensive metrics. And he just does things just so naturally and smoothly. And I tweeted this out after one of the plays that he made that I thought was a perfect example. And this isn't a segment to go in on Vaughn Grissom and the struggles that he's having. There's a 6-year difference between Vaughn Grissom and Orlando Arcia. Arcia has played nearly 600 more games than Vaughn Grissom. But I did want to point out there was a play. It was a ball hitting the 6 hole between shortstop and third base. Arcia has the confidence to round that ball, charge it, throw while moving towards first base. It's a much easier play for the shortstop if you can do that. If you have the confidence to come around it, play the short hop, and then make the throw moving towards first base with your momentum going towards first base. What we've seen Vaughn Grissom do with that type of play is he will sit back, play the easy hop, probably because he doesn't have the confidence to charge it and play that shortstop, and then he'll make a flat-footed throw to first base. And maybe he gets the out, but makes the play a much more difficult. And it's just a much more smoother and easier play if you do what Arcia did and you round that baseball, charge it, catch the short hop, and make a fluid throw while you're moving towards first base with your momentum going towards first base. It's just a much easier play. And it's just one example of where you're seeing the difference between Arcia and Vaughn Grissom right now. That arm as well that Arcia has makes a big difference. Again, that's not a knock on Vaughn Grissom. I'm just showing the level of maturity and confidence that Arcia has compared to Grissom right now, who again is still 22 and has played nearly 600 fewer games at the big league level than Orlando Arcia. And then Charlie Morton, got to talk about him. He has to be that co-ace with Spencer Strider atop the rotation now with Max Fried out, and he's pitched like it for a lot of this year. He went 6 innings, which is great to say the bullpen, because we're going to have a bullpen game on Wednesday. 5 hits, 2 walks, 2 earned, 7 strikeouts, 1 home run, solo home run, no hit batters, 100 pitches. So thought it was another really good outing, a 3.32 ERA on the year right now for Charlie Morton. So he's pitching like that top of the rotation guy. A questionable balk that led to a run. Acuna almost threw out Verdugo at home on a ball hit to very deep right field. Another absolute laser shot. Just 12 swings and misses, but had 20 called strikes, and he had 7 strikeouts against the Red Sox team that doesn't strike out a lot. Didn't have to pitch with a lot of stress. He did load the bases with 2 outs in that second inning after that long bottom of the first inning, but threw a beautiful backdoor curveball on a 3-2 count to strike out the hitter to end the inning. But other than that, never had another inning with more than 1 base runner. So again, you get that big lead, and he made it pretty much stress-free the rest of the way. So another good outing from Charlie Morton. Hopefully that will continue. Like I said, with Fried out, he has to be that co-ace at the top of the rotation with Spencer Strider. If Strider can't get it done, then Charlie Morton has to come through to try to stop a losing streak or get the Braves going again. He has to be that co-ace up there to take the place of Max Fried right now. But next, I want to talk about Sean Murphy. It's our stat of the day, Wednesday segment. We're going to focus in on the Braves catcher position, and Sean Murphy has something to do something pretty special this season and break a franchise record. We'll discuss that here next. Our new sponsor, Sorare, is a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace, transforming fans into owners with officially licensed digital cards featuring players from across all 30 MLB teams. I've been playing this for pretty much most of the year, and I'm starting to build up my card collection, be able to compete. I was 65th in the league that I'm playing in this week when I checked the other day. So it's a lot of fun. You get to build these teams with these cards. You can do it completely free if you want to, no cost to play, and it's a lot of fun competing against other players out there. They do 2 cycles a week, so more opportunities to play, and the more you play, the more cards you get, the better leagues that you can play in, and the bigger prizes that you can get. You can get game tickets, merchandise, signed jerseys, VIP experiences like meeting MLB stars. Again, the prizes vary depending on the level of competition. So head to sorare.com/lockedon. That's SORARE.com to draft your team of free player cards, set your lineup, and start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, that's sorare.com/lockedon to start playing. If you want to start playing, you want to support the show, make sure that you use that link to sign up for Sorare. Braves play the Red Sox again on Tuesday night at 7:20 p.m. Eastern. Home team will look to complete a quick 2-game sweep of the Red Sox. Catch every pitch of the Braves' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Braves. Now, we do have another off day coming up on Thursday. So Thursday night, I will do a live episode of our Mailbag podcast for this week. So be on the lookout for that tweet from the main Locked On Braves Twitter account so that you can submit your questions to be answered on that live podcast that I'll record Thursday evening. All right, that's our stat of the day, Wednesday. And our stat of the day is 6.8 B WAR. That's baseball reference WAR. That's what Javi Lopez had in 2003, the best year by any Braves catcher according to Baseball Reference's WAR. Now, I used Baseball Reference instead of Fangraphs WAR because Fangraphs WAR is a little skewed for whatever reason. They have Brian McCann with an 8.6 F WAR season back in 2008. Big reason of that is because they gave Brian McCann a defensive rating of 57.1, which just seems highly inflated. JT Realmuto's highest defensive rating in a season is 27.5. So I don't know if some sort of scaling or metric has changed in their defensive rating for catchers over the year, but that's why I went with Baseball Reference WAR over Fangraphs WAR. But Baseball Reference WAR highest WAR season for any Braves catcher is 6.8 by Javi Lopez in 2003. And you also had Joe Torre, he's second at 6.4 B-WAR in 1966. And then Brian McCann had a 5.5 B-WAR season in 2008. You look at those three guys, those are pretty definitively the three best catchers in franchise history. And those are pretty much the three best seasons in franchise history by a catcher. Now, the question is for today, could Sean Murphy potentially break that record? Could he break that Baseball Reference WAR record held by Javi Lopez in 2003? I want to start out by looking at the numbers for both Javi Lopez, Joe Torre, and Brian McCann in their top seasons. In 2003, Javi Lopez slashed 328, 378, 687. That is a crazy slash line for a catcher. 170 WRC plus, a 1065 OPS, 43 home runs, 109 runs batted in. And he finished fifth in the MVP voting that year. Now, this is around the time of the steroid era, and I'm not saying anything about Javi Lopez. Never would, blaspheme a Braves legend like that. But you look at the guys ahead of him, Bonds, Pujols, Sheffield, and Jim Thome, all really good players, Hall of Fame worthy type players. Javi Lopez didn't even get a first place vote with that line. And here's the other crazy thing about Javi Lopez in that season: 129 games played, 495 plate appearances. He did all of that damage in 129 games played, 43 home runs. That's absolutely absurd. Again, in an era where there was a lot of offense, a lot of home runs being hit, but just a fantastic season by Javi Lopez. And as I said, the best season offensively by a Braves catcher. You look at Joe Torre's numbers in 1966. He slashed 315, 382, 560, a 943 OPS, 157 WRC plus with 36 home runs, 101 runs batted in. Joe Torre had a 9.9% K rate in that year. Game has definitely changed in that regard. Really wasn't even that great defensively, which probably held down some of his WAR ranking as well. He finished 16th in the MVP voting that year. He had guys like Roberto Clemente, Sandy Koufax, Willie Mays, Juan Marichal, and Hank Aaron to compete with for the MVP award that year. They all finished higher than Joe Torre. 148 games played, 614 plate appearances for Joe Torre in that 1966 season. And then Brian McCann in 2008 slashed 301, 373, 523, and 896 OPS, 135 WRC plus, 23 home runs, 87 runs batted in. Didn't get any MVP votes that year. 145 games, 573 plate appearances. So those are the three best seasons by a Braves catcher in Braves history. So could Sean Murphy catch Javi Lopez? Could he catch Brian McCann and enter into that top three seasons by a Braves catcher? Right now, he has 1.9 B-WAR. That was before Tuesday's game, so he's on very good pace for that. You look at his pace for the entire season. His pace right now is slash line 299, 440, 636. That would be still lower than Javi Lopez's 687 slugging percentage that he had in 2003. But a 1076 OPS would be better than what Javi Lopez had that season, as would a 180 WRC plus, which is what Sean Murphy is on pace for right now. He has 9 home runs and 32 runs batted in at the moment over 143 games. That would lead to 42 home runs and 130 runs batted in. So 1 home run short of what Javi Lopez did and several more RBIs than what Javi Lopez had in that season. Fangraphs also projects him for 10 F-WAR. That would even be higher than Brian McCann's huge 8.6 F-WAR season that he had in 2008. So again, B-WAR is usually a little bit lower than F-WAR, but still, and I don't have the projection for what his B-WAR would be at the end of the season, but based on the fact Fangraphs has him projected to be a 10 WAR player, you can see he's currently on pace to have the best season ever by a Braves catcher. Now, can he keep it up? Just about everything is up significantly on his baseball savant page, hard hit percentage, everything, barrel rate, all of that is up. Can he keep it up? That's the question. It's still very early, but he's on pace again to have the best season ever by a Braves catcher. Now, we haven't seen Sean Murphy do this before, but you go back and look, and I talked about this when the Braves traded for him. You go back and look at the second half of his season last year, he was this type of hitter. And now he's been this hitter again for the first month plus of this season. So maybe this is who Sean Murphy is. If he is, what a steal that the Braves have gotten, because he is in the MVP discussion right now. I think it's him, and I think it's Ronald Acuna Jr. right now at the top of the NL MVP discussion. So again, it's very early. I'm sure Sean Murphy's going to hit a cold streak at some point, but every night right now, he is just blistering the baseball, as I said at the very top of this podcast. And it's fun to see. Again, just early tracking, but he is on pace to have the best season ever as a Braves catcher. And I really hope he can do it. I hope he continues this pace, because it's a lot of fun to watch. All right, next we'll get to some news items and then set you up for Wednesday's game, which will be a bullpen game for the Atlanta Braves. I'll tell you how they can piece it together and get the win. Braves did make a little bit of a transaction news on Tuesday as well, signing Chad Pinder to a minor league deal. Chad Pinder, been with the Oakland A's, has a lot of big league experience, can play everywhere. He's played everywhere except catcher in his career, and that includes pitcher. He pitched for an inning. So another guy, veteran guy, a lot of versatility, could possibly replace Adrianza if needed, and you wanted to send Shoemake back down, you could do that. You'd have to make a spot for him on the 40-man roster to do that, but give you some more veteran depth and somebody with a lot of versatility that can play many different positions. Now, he hasn't played shortstop since 2021 and only played in 8 games then. So if you're looking with somebody else that can back up shortstop, I don't know if the Braves feel comfortable with him doing that. But again, he's played it pretty much everywhere except for catcher in his career. But again, the Braves signing Chad Pinder on Tuesday as well to a minor league deal. Now, on Wednesday's game, the Braves are going to go with a bullpen game since Charlie Morton was able to give them some length on Tuesday. I would imagine we see Jared Schuster start a game over the weekend at some point. We'll see. We'll see if he pitches, obviously, for Gwinnett over the next 2 days. That's not going to happen. Dylan Dodd pitched for Gwinnett on Tuesday. Things did not go great there. So I would imagine Jared Schuster is going to be the one to get the next opportunity whenever that lines up for him to pitch, whenever the Braves need him to pitch. I would imagine he's going to be the next guy to get an opportunity. But again, 2 of those guys are going to need to start at some point, whether it's Dodd, Schuster, or Soroka. They're going to need 2 of those guys here pretty soon. I know they got a couple more off days coming up, but 2 of those guys are going to have to step up in the rotation. But I do think Schuster is going to be the next one to get that chance. But on Wednesday, it's a bullpen game. I think Jesse Chavez gets the start. Just makes sense. He's done it before as an opener. If he can get you through 2 innings, great. Then you go to Colin McHugh, who's able to go multiple innings. He can get you through 2 innings. And then either Michael Tonkin, Dylan Lee to try to get you through the next 2 to 3 innings. And then you kind of go from there and see how things are going. But I think you're going to use all of your best guys regardless, because you got the off day on Thursday. You didn't pitch Nick Anderson or Raisel Iglesias on Tuesday. So you're probably going to want to get those guys some work. So I think it's Chavez, McHugh, Tonkin, Lee, Anderson, and Iglesias. Use those 6 arms to try to get through the game as best you can on Thursday. If it comes a blowout, then Joe Jimenez would be an option in there as well. But I think that's the plan for the Braves on Wednesday, pitching wise. They're going up against Brayan Bello of the Red Sox, 23 years old, right-handed pitcher, made 11 starts last year, had a 4.71 ERA and a 1.78 whip with just about a strikeout per inning. 4 starts this year, a 5.71 ERA, a 1.91 whip, and 19 strikeouts and 6 walks and 17 1/3 innings. He hasn't gone more than 5 innings in a start this year, so maybe the Braves can get to him early and knock him out. He's given up a home run in every start. One home run in every start. That's it. No more, no less. One home run in every start. So make sure when the Braves get theirs that there's at least a runner or two on base. Now, he's been better. His first start of the year, 2 2/3 innings, 5 earned runs. But since then, he's essentially gone 5 innings, allowing around 2 earned in his 3 starts since then. So, he's kept his team in the game. He's been a fifth starter for them for his last 3 starts in particular. Sinker, slider, changeup, four seam. His changeup is his best pitch, gets a lot of swings and misses on it, but his slider gets absolutely crushed. So hopefully the Braves can sit on that pitch, get a couple of hangers, and do some damage with those. Gets a lot of ground balls, though, with that sinker, a 57.1% ground ball rate this year. So look for that. Hopefully Austin Riley doesn't come up with a runner on first and hit into another double play on that sinker down and in. But just giving you a scouting report there on Brian Bello and what he has to deliver. Once again, the Braves play the Red Sox on Tuesday night at 7:20 p.m. Eastern. We'll see if the bullpen can piece things together and help the Braves get the win. Maybe the offense puts up another big number early. You can catch every pitch of the Braves hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Braves. That will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Thank you so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. And again, thank you so much to all of my everydayers out there. It means a ton to me to hear you say that you listen to the podcast each and every day. I can't tell you how much that means and how much motivated that keeps me going forward. So please let me know in the comments if you are an everydayer. Love hearing from you in the comments section. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at LockedOn_Braves. You can follow me at ShortstopBall. Also, make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.